So welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the USA 500 Club's Practicum on Marketing Effectively During a Pandemic. I'm Mary Honan. I'm the principal of For Marketing Matters. We're our client's full-service outsourced marketing department. We start by building the strategy, and then we execute all aspects of the marketing plan to fuel growth. So we pride ourselves in our accountability and delivering measurable results, ROI reported monthly in terms of awareness, leads, and revenue growth. Let me introduce to you our other speakers today, and let's start with Stephanie Zellman.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stephanie Zellman from U-Turn Design. We offer creative marketing services, including logo design and corporate identity, web design, branding, advertising, and creative content for social media. We help our clients with strategic marketing, keeping their unique brand in mind as we communicate to their audience in a thoughtful and compelling way.
Now let's meet Keith Loris.
Good morning. So I'm Keith Loris of Sales Renewal. We're a unique outsourced marketing agency. We become our client's marketing department, and we uniquely share the risk and reward with our clients. Thank you.
Excellent. So stating the obvious, we're in extraordinary times here. And how do you get marketing right? So while many things have changed, we have good news for you today. Certain fundamentals of marketing principles have not changed. So in this practicum, what we're going to do is we're going to review fundamentals of marketing that are essential in these times. And we're going to talk about these marketing fundamentals in three ways. First, Stephanie will cover marketing communications. I will then talk about the importance of being clear and targeted. And finally, Keith will talk about the importance of crafting your offerings. So let's get started and kick it off with Stephanie and focusing on marketing communications.
Okay. Well, during COVID-19, it's hard to think that anything has stayed the same. After all, our whole world has turned upside down. And as Mary said, there is one thing that hasn't changed, and that's effective marketing. And I'd like to talk specifically about effective marketing communications. While return on investment is dependent on several variables, from a solid marketing strategy, which Mary will be talking about, to offerings that benefit the customer that Keith will discuss, the fundamental thing about effective communication during a pandemic or not is whether it gets noticed. So today I'm going to focus on advertising that gets noticed in a pandemic, or should I say, COVIDizing. I'm going to move to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm trying to, sorry.
Well, I'll keep going. So with so much loss and suffering.
No, hold on, because we're going to have to get it.
Oh, okay.
Get it. The page down isn't the entering. Okay, hold on. I'm so sorry. Let me
No worries.
Why it's not going. There it is.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, with so much loss and suffering, connecting with your audience right now is especially important. To get noticed, the message needs to resonate, and that happens when there's a compelling emotional truth. But before I elaborate on COVIDizing, I just want to back up a little bit and talk about branding, because everybody talks about branding, but what does it really mean? What is a brand? It's not a logo. It's not a corporate identity. It's not a product or service. So what is it? As explained by Marty Neumeier in The Brand Gap, a brand is a person's gut feeling about a service or product or company. When enough individuals arrive at the same gut feeling, a company can be said to have a brand. So we all know what this is, and we know that this mark represents more than just a swoosh. But is one pair of running shoes really better than another? Nike's tagline, "Just Do It," launched in 1988 with an 80-year-old runner named Walt heading across the Golden Gate Bridge. Fast forward to the inspirational Air Jordan ads in the 90s, and then to last year with the Colin Kaepernick ad that says, "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." And currently, during the Black Lives Matter movement, Nike says, for once, don't do it, meaning don't turn your back on racism, don't make excuses, and so on. So the Nike brand is not about the superior technology or design of their shoes. Those 3 simple words, just do it, are telling us, don't wait, don't quit, don't put it off, don't make excuses, don't give up. Whether it's just do it or don't do it, the consistent brand message speaks to our gut. We're hit by over 5,000 marketing messages per day. It's this gut feeling, or what I like to call the compelling emotional truth, that cuts through the clutter. As I explained, in our economy of customization, comparing companies' features and benefits alone doesn't work. The same goes for services. If there are 5 estate planning attorneys in this room who are all exceptional in their abilities with experience and great service, how do they market themselves in a unique way? From a strategic point of view, you need a benefit, but creatively, you won't stand out if you sound like everybody else. We're cognitively wired to notice what's different. We like different. Words like quality and service are generic and don't resonate. So what is your core message, and how do you turn that into a compelling emotional truth? You say something that your audience can relate to or feel. The compelling emotional truth tugs at your heart, your intellect, or your funny bone. It's believable. It makes you nod your head or laugh or feel an emotion or recall an experience. The compelling emotional truth rips through the billion blah, blah, blah messages you see in a day. It resonates, and that's why you remember it. And now back to COVIDizing. One study showed that over 80% of millennials expect companies to make a public commitment to good corporate citizenship. It's pretty clear right now that brand loyalty increases when companies help their communities. Crocs is a great example. In their Share a Pair for Healthcare program, they donated over 860,000 pairs of shoes to healthcare workers. As explained by the CEO, Andrew Reese, they spoke to frontline workers who specifically asked for Crocs to provide ease on their feet and their minds, as they desperately need to easily clean up before they go home to their families. This is the best kind of relevant COVID marketing, because this clog has features that keep healthcare workers comfortable and sanitary, and it's all about what it's like to be in other people's shoes. Uber advertising thanked its customers for staying home and not riding. Cox Communications, a telecommunications company, created the One Call a Day program for seniors in severe isolation. Coca-Cola is not selling either. They have a message for humanity. They are creatively saying the glass is not empty, but full of hope. And in this particular clip, they show that with every barrier set up, there are boundaries torn down. And as a side note, Coke's COVID global relief efforts topped 100 million. So I'm showing these big brands to point out creative marketing, but we've all seen many local pivots that build brands and community. A textile mill in Fall River started making and donating masks to local hospitals. When a construction company in Waltham got closed down in quarantine, they made plexiglass boxes to reduce the spread of infection to healthcare workers when a patient is put on a ventilator. In March, a photographer started a nonprofit called the Front Steps Project. She took photos of families at home on their porches, and has donated more than $45,000 to the Needham Community Council. And she's building her brand by talking about it. That's COVIDizing. I know that many people right here in USA 500 are offering free advice to their clients to help get them through this pandemic. So tell your audience and try to communicate it in a compelling way so you stand out. If the context is right, you can even use some humor. From the early days of hoarding toilet paper to Zoom fatigue to desperately needing a haircut, we have shared COVID experiences, and these days everyone needs to smile. So to paraphrase President John F. Kennedy's most famous line, ask not what your audience can do for you, but what your brand can do for your audience. And so I have 4 takeaways. Help if you can. Can you make a positive contribution in some way and communicate this to your audience? They will notice it, and remember, don't try to sell, be human. It's not about you, it's about them. Find your compelling emotional truth. The key to successful marketing, especially during a pandemic, is to close the gap between the left brain, practical, analytical, logical thinking of a marketing strategy that informs you of your audience and the benefit, and the right brain, emotional, creative message that will distinguish your brand. For the small business owner with a limited budget, finding out how to communicate in a compelling way will distinguish you. Make someone think, tear up, or laugh. Make someone care, and you're in the game. And lastly, pivot your product, not your brand. Stick to your distinctive brand voice. What are your values and mission as a company? Can you continue to provide a benefit within this new context? Be authentic. As a creative director, I always try to make sure the concept is relevant, but this is also important from a strategic point of view. And now Mary is going to go into more detail about that.
Thank you, Stephanie. So part 2 today, we'll talk about the essentials of messaging and how do you go to market in a pandemic. So as Stephanie said, so much in our world has changed. Some things may be changed forever. The good news for all of you here today, marketing fundamentals have not changed. So don't feel overwhelmed, confused, or honestly panicked. Let's go through a couple of things for you to think about and how you want to consider going to market in this pandemic. There's 2 visuals I'd like you to think about. And if there's nothing from what I say in the next few minutes that you remember, I'd like you to think about a shiny Granny Smith apple and a blue brick. Now, as a marketer, all of us think about colors and building our own brands. But for those who know me, I carry around blue painted bricks to my client meetings, and often will come up with and show up to a meeting with a Granny Smith apple. Now, not to bore you with marketing theory, but when you think about a Granny Smith apple, many people may say, oh, marketing is that shiny outer part. And actually, I'd like to suggest to you today, the marketing is actually the core. When you think about your body core, that's where you get your strength. It's also your heart and soul of where you're unique. And as Stephanie suggested to you this morning, that is what you want to go to. Go to your core. And in these times of uncertainty, we're going to talk in the next few minutes about making sure you're thinking about your unique identity and where those seeds are in this shiny Granny Smith apple. That's your source for future growth. That's what you want to turn to in these uncertain times. The second visual I suggest you to think about is this solid brick. This brick in terms of it's the strength of your firm. And when we work with our clients, we talk about the strength of their foundation. And in each aspect of our presentation today, we're going to be referring to these essentials, these fundamentals of marketing that you want to go to. And my key message to you is play to your strengths. Just as Stephanie suggested, don't change your brand. Look at what your strengths are and build on those in times of uncertainty. In other words, don't panic and feel like you need to build from scratch. Build on what's in place, and that will serve you well. So let's get started a little bit. Let me ask you, in looking at this slide, would you take a left turn? What do? Mixed signals are a big risk during this time of uncertainty. And many of us confuse activity with progress and think, well, I got to do something. I better do something. And actually, what we're suggesting to you is look within, look to your core, play to your strengths. Don't panic or say, okay, I've got to take action, because the risk of taking action is sending mixed signals. And imagine if this is your prospect, this is your client, and they're seeing a message that sends this type of signal to them. I take a left turn, I don't take a left turn. And in a real simple way, think about things like, have your hours changed? Were you communicating 2 months ago that it was appointment only and now your office hours are open? A simple example, but can be confusing to your audience. If there's restrictions, if there's changes in how you're operating, a simple clarity of your message is going to be important. So before you change your messages, before you tweak anything, I suggest you do an inventory. Look deep within, look back to your core, play to your strengths. What are you great at? Review your value proposition and reorder it. Now, what do I mean by that? Some of you may be sitting here going, oh, this is a lot of marketing speak. But what I want you to think about is, What are you great at? And I'm going to use an example that I think many of us can relate to. Restaurants were hit extremely hard across the country, across the globe. And Food and Wine magazine recently did a fabulous edition just speaking to the resilience and the heart of what some of these restaurants did. And one particular story really struck me, and I'd like to share it with you during this practicum. So the particular restaurant, obviously, like everyone else, was forced to close and forced to come up with, what are they going to do? And rather than being like a turtle and sticking their head in the shell and saying, I'm just hope I get through this, they did this. They did an inventory of, well, we're great at serving fabulous food. We have a very loyal clientele. But the other key strength that they had was they locally sourced all of their produce and wherever possible, a lot of their meats. So what they did is they reviewed their value proposition and they reordered it. And what they started to do was offer the ability for people to go and safely purchase locally grown produce, not making the meals, but reordered what their core value was. Again, go to your strengths, think of the brick, go to your core. Where could you plant seeds for future growth? And they reordered. Clarity is critical. So refine and tweak your message to be clear. Be as specific as you can. And what I mean by that is, if you're diluting your message, if you're sending that you are known for certain strengths and that now you've pivoted and you're now presenting yourself as someone totally different, that is going to likely create mixed signals. So play to your strengths and make sure the message is very clear, and test it so that your key people that already know and like and trust you in terms of your client base understand it, and that your prospects will also understand it as well. Really important at this point. Secondly, how do you stand out? How can you stand out in a crowd? In all the messages, as Stephanie identified, how many messages are coming at all of us via email and social media and the news and all these various places? How can you stand out in a crowd? So in addition to clarity, the other C I want you to think about that is so important in standing out in a crowd and your value proposition and being unique is, right now, especially in this pandemic, how can you be compelling? How can you become essential? And I'm not saying reinvent yourself. I'm saying, again, go to your strengths, look at what your client base, look at what your prospects, that you offer of value to them right now. That could be assurance. That could be additional information to guide them. That could be information that you're sharing with them, or perhaps you are looking at your fees schedule, looking at other ways that you can help them. And emphasize what you offer of value that people need now. That may sound really basic, but as Stephanie shared with examples, this isn't a time that you're selling and promoting. You're taking a message of where you can assist them. It's super important to evaluate and refine word choice right now. Our country is so politically charged. It's very divisive. We have considerable race relation challenges going on right now. And I purposely picked this visual because look at that person, look at that image of how they're standing out in a sea of unhappy faces. Look for how you can provide positivity, empathy, hope, help, encouragement. If you do not change some of your word choice at this time, you risk being tone deaf, you risk being irrelevant, you risk coming across as being insensitive to everything that's going on. Being a glass half full person, my suggestion and how we work with all of our clients is where you can add that positivity, where you can add a sense of hope, or just using the word "we're here to help" can very much assist you in coming across in a relevant manner during these challenging times. And finally, Marketing 101, who is your target audience? Who should you be trying to help the most right now? Focus. This is hard for many firms. They are afraid they're going to miss something. Oh no, we better get that out to everybody. But my suggestion to you this morning is take your revised message to the right message, so to the right audience. Excuse me. So in the prior components where we want you to be clear, don't send mixed signals, and now tweak your message to be empathetic and relevant. But now look deep within. Look at your audience. Look at who needs you more than falling into that nice to have category. The nice to have category is less likely to have the budget, the cash flow, or the interest right now, given other priorities. But there may be certain audiences for you to consider to target to. I'd suggest you look at your geographic areas. If you are across state, if you are across the country, if you have opportunities, you really want to evaluate strategically which states are opening up more. As we all know, Massachusetts was hit very hard early, and now the Sun Belt is very much affected, and we're starting to come out and get through some of this. But as you know, things are very fluid. So you have to monitor carefully what audiences, what sectors. And I would suggest to some of you with the urban and suburban separation, if you can look at who you serve and where you serve, you may have an opportunity to really offer a safe and comfortable environment for how you could serve your clients, because they may be less inclined to go to an urban environment. They may be concerned about elevators and parking and all the various things that may expose them. So look at who you could help and target and what your offering could be for them. And finally, obviously, look at sectors. Look at the sectors you serve. I've shared a few of the examples of where there has been, especially in the greater Boston area and where we are with the number of higher ed institutions, hospitals and healthcare, and clearly long-term care and nursing homes. Those are just 3 examples of sectors that have a lot of needs, are being hugely impacted by the pandemic and everything going on. And I'll just give an example of one of our clients that strategically the last few months, we have been building the message and a targeted marketing plan to assist, not sell to, but assist the long-term care and nursing home facilities, because one of our clients has an offering that can so help them in some of their challenges. And again, emphasizing assisting and helping, not promoting and selling. So look at within your sectors, geographic, and separate where your services are most in need, where your services are not going to be growing or may have a delay in the economy of when they start to bounce back. Finally, for being targeted, I'd suggest always start with your existing clients and how you can better serve them, help them, reassure them, and then look at your past clients. Have some things changed? Always look at your clients first, because they know you, they trust you, they have a relationship with you. See how you can assist them. Don't forget about prospects. Sometimes people go, oh, in this economy, how could I ever start talking to my prospects? Make sure you're reaching out to them. Things may have changed and you can service them, but prioritize who you want to be in front of, both to manage your time, your marketing investment, and where you're going to get your best return on investment. So my takeaways this morning are three key messages for you. First, be clear. Cut through the clutter and be clear think about that mixed signals visual. Be very clear of what you offer, how you can best help somebody right now. And then be compelling, be relevant, make sure your messages are tweaked and refined in terms of tone and message so that you are compelling. And then be focused on who you can best help right now, and go and prioritize where you're spending your time and your effort. And just like that wonderful restaurant example that I was so enthralled with what they did, shift to where your firm's value is needed most. They looked at their core strengths and knew not only are we a fabulous restaurant with an ambiance and prepared meals that people come and enjoy, but given we can't do that, let's shift to where we are excellent in sourcing from local farmers and offering that in terms of they converted themselves to a grocery store, and their loyal client base went to them to source those locally owned locally grown organic vegetables and local meats, and they were helping both the local farmers and serving their clients who, as we know, in these times, there was shortages of many vegetables and things that we were all looking to find. So they played to their strengths, they built off their core capabilities, and they had a clear, compelling offering that helped them weather the storm, and they're prepared now to go back as they're able to reopen. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Keith Loris for our final part.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about how you can craft your offerings to reduce the time to first dollar. By that I mean, from the moment somebody enters, a lead enters your pipeline as a prospect, a qualified prospect, till the time you get some money out of them, whatever that first dollar is, right? And how do we try and reduce that? Very important in this post-COVID era, very important in potentially the bad economy we're facing, right? So next slide, please. I realize I can't hit page down on my my keyboard. Doesn't do any good here. All right, so for most professional service firms, they have this problem. Their time to first dollar is too long. And that's generally because many of you have a single, all-inclusive, very important service that's presented as the binary choice. I'm going to use wealth managers as sort of a working example in my part of this talk. And, hire me as a wealth manager or don't hire me is effectively the choice, that you're presenting to the market. However, because many of the services we all provide are really important and consequential, saving for retirement, defending my company in a life or death lawsuit, and so on, prospects are generally not in a rush, right? They want to kick the tires, they want to spend a lot of time with you, make sure you're trustworthy, make sure you're smart, and so on, because this is a really critical decision. The net result is they sit in your pipeline forever, right? Next slide, please. So a lot of the things that were talked about in the earlier portions of the presentation can help you reduce the time to first dollar, particularly the targeting and reaching prospects. And the idea is you want to target and reach when they have the most need for you, when they have a really big problem that's really important to them, okay? These are prospects I call your fastest prospects, the fastest to close, right? And so as an example here, using traditional sort of marketing tactic like SEO or social media. So you're a wealth manager, and when you kind of do this sort of fastest prospect analysis, you realize one category of people who are really your low-hanging fruit would be people who just inherited some money, right? And so if you wrote a blog post, what to do and not do with an inheritance, that topic itself is effectively their targeting. In other words, people who have this problem are going to click this content. And if I didn't hear anything, I would never click this sort of thing. So when it comes to a lot of content marketing, when it comes to SEO, picking the topic is effectively the targeting. Okay. Back to the point about reducing time to first dollar, though, is you could imagine people who are reading this content probably have that problem. I just inherited some money. I need somebody, a trusted person, who can help me with that. So that's a really good example of trying to target and reach your fastest prospects. Another example in social media, there's a Facebook group called Family and Inheritance Law, right? Again, civilian members of that group are probably people who are struggling with this sort of an issue. So your participation in that forum is an ability to target and reach your fastest prospects as wealth manager. Next one, please. More fundamental, more strategic approaches to reducing time to first dollar would be to reevaluate your services. This is actually a kind of marketing that is not as well known as some of the other kinds. It's called product marketing. So product marketing are the internal folks who are the bridge between you and your customers. They're marketing people who really understand your clients, your prospects, your industry, your competitive position, and they work with you to develop your services, your products to meet those needs. They're the champion internal for the client, and they try to deliver services that meet market needs and business needs. So in the realm of product marketing, you can reevaluate your services. We talked earlier about shifting your focus, shift to where your firm's value is needed most. That's another way of saying fastest, fastest prospects, right? So one thing you can do when you do this shift, perhaps there are new services you can offer that are relevant to that shift that you just implemented. Another possibility is you could unbundle your single all-inclusive service. And the idea here is you want to lower the barrier to entry, and you want to make becoming your client easier. Next slide, please. We don't have time to go through all of the details in this graphic, but the idea is you can unbundle your services. You can create tiered offerings, you can make parallel offerings. There are different ways to approach this. But the idea is you want to create this sort of natural upgrade path. So as you see in the left end of that graphic, the more to less, at the top of that spectrum, they're more expensive, they require more commitment, and therefore they stay in your pipeline. At the bottom of that spectrum, they're less expensive, less of a commitment, and therefore they spend less time. So that good level, that bottom level, is really the entry level. So going back to our wealth manager example, every wealth manager I know, the very first thing they do is they do a financial plan. So what if you took financial planning, took it out of this all-inclusive service, and made it a standalone service that you can offer to people? You can put a price tag on it. You think about that. When you're doing a financial plan, forget about the whole pre-sales. How do I encourage trust and show I'm smart? You're going to be doing a plan for these people. You're going to have lots of face time, lots of opportunity to show how brilliant you are, right? And at the end of that process, when you present the plan to them, if they've liked you and think you're smart, who do you think they're going to turn to implement the plan, right? That's an example of what I mean by the natural upgrade path, right? Just by simply taking out something you would have done anyway, making a separate product or service. It's certainly true that nobody's going to click a Google ad and hire a wealth manager. But I can tell you, because we've done it, people will click a Google ad and hire somebody to do a financial plan. So one of the other nice sort of side effects of this is that the things you sort of carve out, the standalone, some of those might be more amenable to traditional lead generation techniques, like online advertising, for example. So that's another potential accelerator. You can get into the market much quicker. And last points here, you get bonus points if that good entry-level offering is a fixed price thing. Again, what you're trying to do in a lot of these calculations is you want to remove barriers to entry. You want to make it easier and quicker to adopt. Next slide, please. So my takeaways, you want to focus and target and reach your fastest prospects. And I'm defining fastest here as those who most need you when they most need you. So timing is really important. Reaching them at the right moment is very important. You potentially can develop new services specifically for your fastest prospects if you don't have something amenable. Or potentially you can unbundle your all-inclusive service to create natural upgrade paths, right? And again, the key here is you want to make the entry point services for the prospects less risky and require less commitment and dollars. Thank you. So now we're going to turn to questions. We have a few more minutes. Any questions? You can really raise your hand, or you can virtually raise your hand, either way. We were just so brilliant. We just laid it all out so clearly, huh?
So all of our contact information is here. If there is anyone, or if you have clients or people that you would like to forward this these slides to, would be happy to do that if you contact one of us via email, or you can also put that in the chat. But otherwise, this has been recorded, so we will make this available. But any feedback is welcome. And otherwise, we again thank you so much for joining us, and hope that there are several of these takeaways that could benefit you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you
wait a
very
minute, we
much.
have a few chats, so let me just see if there's any questions. Okay.
I didn't see
Deborah.
any questions, but
Deborah,
thank you.
you're on mute.
Yes, thank you. I do have a question, and thank you all. This is great. I've got 3 pages of notes from the call, so I appreciate it. But my question is, and in listening what you say and really wanting to put out there what is in the best need of the client, and I have a bookkeeping company, how do we make sure we're not looking opportunistic at the same time? So we want to help our client. We know what we can do. is there any, kind of point where we're sure that we're coming across as being sincere and not opportunistic?
I think you're asking this question is so important, and my perspective is the importance of word choice and making sure just what you said, they come from the heart. As Stephanie suggested, this is human. This is a very humane situation we're in, and I'd like to think that we can all learn from that we treat each other with the dignity and respect and kindness. And I would just suggest, from a messaging perspective, that you come from the heart, you come from that we're here to help. And if you come from that perspective, I really think it will help you confidently feeling like, I'm not trying to be opportunistic, I'm trying to help. And people need to know when they're looking for ways and the talent and expertise to truly help them during these times.
Thank you. And I think Keith's point too about doing something that's a fixed fee, so you're helping them and they know kind of what they're getting and what it's costing, so it's all very upfront. And I think that was a helpful suggestion too, so thank you.
There's also a line you have to walk, because at the end of the day, it's a business, you're selling a service, and you're not a nonprofit. So you don't want to go so far over that you're not being credible anymore, right? So I very much agree with Mary. This is more of a tonal thing. It's not that, assuming the service itself is helpful and useful, right? It's not a scam or something. It's really sort of how you present it. And you kind of want to walk the line because, at the end of the day, you're selling something that they need. And you just have to have confidence in that too.
Great, thank you all.
Anyone else?
I think it's also important to keep in mind it's what they remember, it's what they need and not what you want to sell. And once you make that distinction, I think it comes more naturally in terms of how you communicate it. Just keeping focused on them versus yourself or the business.
Great.
And Mary is right. It's really tone. I mean, it really comes down to sometimes not exactly what you're saying, but how you're saying it to connect it with your audience. It's perception, right? It's all that non-tangible stuff that builds your brand. So it's really how you communicate and understand where they're coming from that will help you craft your message.
Okay.
Anyone else? Well, thank you all very much. You have our contact information. If any of us can help you, or if you have any questions, just please let us know. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Thanks for attending. Bye, everyone.